Hello, once again. John Flynn here from Flynn Real Estate, serving Southern Ontario, based out of the Niagara region. Thank you all once again for tuning in. So, tomorrow we have the big interest rate announcement from the Bank of Canada. And yet again, we have another premier, this time the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, writing his pity letters to the Bank of Canada, asking them to pause the rates. Last month, it was on September 1st, I believe. It was Abby from BC, and I think there was another one also. But again, writing a similar letter. Our citizens are struggling with these interest payments. Please don't raise them anymore. And then today, just before the rate announcement, the Bank of Canada says the Premier's rate requests risk independence. So, of course, the Bank of Canada has its mandate and is supposed to be independent from the government and governments, not being influenced by them. They have to stick to their 2% inflation target, and they need to do what they need to do. And for some reason, these politicians think that they can break the rules and influence them, which is the whole point of being independent. You're not supposed to be influenced. Now, will they influence them? No. What they're going to do is they're going to write these letters 1 week before the announcement, knowing what the announcement will most likely be, which will still be a pause on the rates because they are taking effect. And then they will, get the credit for it, saying, well, we wrote a letter and look, we helped keep the rates paused. But let me know what you think in the comments about that situation. Next, I want to move on to the Airbnb issue. And I'll start with just a few headlines. Airbnb operator says he's facing losses of hundreds of thousands of dollars because of BC's new short-term rental laws. Very hurt. New Airbnb restrictions spark backlash from BC landlords. And the next one's kind of on the opposite side of the argument or the debate. These Airbnb owners support new BC regulations on short-term rentals. Wyatt Dahl and Brett Mason say Airbnb limits will hurt them but help others. So, of course, the argument is, well, these investors and these business people are losing all this money because they created these new rules. And on the other side of the fence, some say, yes, we're owners, it's going to hurt us, but it's going to help people with their housing needs. Now, overall, let me know what you think. I actually got a really good comment on either X or YouTube this week. I tried to look for it, but I couldn't find it. But they said it's kind of backwards nowadays. All the hotels are used for long-term rentals and the homes are used as hotel rooms, which is kind of true, right? Now, another point I made was the technological loophole, how these things were created. They were created with technology, and of course, they weren't regulated. They were saying, here, do your own thing. Don't worry about hotel regulations or real bed and breakfast regulations. You can just rent the rooms out yourself. You don't need to go through a city or anything. So the cities and the municipalities have been playing catch up where, again, it was a technological loophole that these things were created through, and they're playing catch up. Now, whether it's Uber or Airbnb, they're slowly catching up with regulations saying, look, you can't just drive people around in your car. You have to have it inspected. You have to be registered with the city. And so they're not going backwards with these. They're just catching them up to the standards that everyone else was subject to prior to this technological advancement. Okay, now let's look at some data. And I do have an updated housing or home buying recipe, but let's look at some data first from this week. So I created this chart to supplement a chart I had from last week where I showed the sales in 2023, the forecasted for the last 3 months, but the total sales for 2023, similar to the sales in 2010. Yet we have 7 million more people and 2.5 million more homes. So I wanted to put that into perspective. So I did a sales per capita chart here. And it really goes to show you, this takes into account all those extra people and all the extra homes. And when looking at the sales per capita, and this chart scale is sales per 100,000 people, you can see how low they are. It's actually the lowest in recorded history. We didn't have MLS sales data prior to maybe 2004, but there was no data available up until 2007. Of course, MLS electronic systems weren't around prior to, again, the beginning of the 2000s or so. But you can see the lowest level by far, 18% below the average and 10% below the previous low. So 2023 is by far the lowest sales per capita. And again, in reference, the lowest sales overall by that measure. Course, it always has to come back to us, the agents now. How are we making out? And of course, it's going to hurt a lot of agents. In 2010, we had 98,000 agents. Now we have over 160,000, probably closer to 165,000 agents. So looking at that, how many deals per agent are happening right now? And of course, it's going to be like the sales per capita, it's going to be very low. So here is an updated chart going back again to 2007, since we have consistent records from that year. And this is deals per agent per year. And this is MLS deals. So it wouldn't include a lot of the new builds. But again, it's all MLS sales. And you can see we're about half of what we were in 2007 and about 40% lower than we were in 2021. So the agents are doing a lot less deals and making a lot less money, obviously. I just want to share some comments from the post that I made on Twitter about this, or should I say X. So, of course, I posted this chart on X and my sarcastic comment asking if the agent saved some cash from 2021. And here are some of the comments. Waiting patiently for discounted Audi leases on Lease Busters. From Free Casino Money. I have known my agent for 24 years. Up to June, she was doing fine as her clients were listing and moving out to Port Hope/Brighton or moving out of province. Now she is feeling it as many buyers are not qualifying for what they want to buy. She sold 2 homes in past 3 months. Actually, that's not bad considering most agents, or the average agent, does 2.7 deals per year in 2023. And from Donna Baker, I don't know how to say your name properly. You could pronounce it like 10 different ways. So sorry if I mispronounced it. She's actually a retired realtor from what I know. Had a chat with a realtor in GHA, Greater Hamilton area, who I've known forever. Very constant producer, 18 to 24 deals a year. In 2023, 0 deals, 0. They haven't been able to get anything together. Listings that haven't sold, doing nothing but spending a lot of dollars. They don't think they can renew. Wow, so that's huge, right? 0 deals in 9 months, almost 10 months by now. I actually had a call from an agent or previous agent that used to work under my brokerage, and he was calling looking for a reference for some job he was applying for. So it is changing out there. Agents are leaving the industry. A lot of them will hold their licenses, so you won't see the Korea numbers go down because you can hang your license fairly cheap, maybe $500 a year without being part of a board. But again, they are leaving the boards and are leaving active trading in real estate. Now, a couple of really important charts before I go. The first one is time it took rate hike cycles to break something. And this is in Canada. This was going back for the last 4 cycles, 1978 to 1981. It took 42 months. There were some pretty significant rate hikes back then. In the late 80s, it took 31 months. Again, these are from the bottom of when they started hiking rates until they reached the top and they broke and they had to start dropping rates. 31 months in the late 80s. The one from 1997 to 2001 is the dot-com bubble. Not a huge deal in Canada. It more affected the States. But again, it took 44 months in Canada to break something, and that economic downturn happened right after. And then the most recent one in 2005 to 2007, right before the great financial crisis. Canada got off easy again on that crisis, but it took 28 months from the bottom of the cycle to the top to break something before they started dropping rates. So we have between 28 and 44 months. We are at month 20 right now. So it could happen at any point where they reverse course. But the predictions, even from the Bank of Canada, are saying late 2024 before they consider dropping rates. It might happen before then, but we're probably looking at mid 2024 at the earliest until 2025 sometime before they start reversing on this cycle and start dropping rates. And of course, we'll be in an economic turmoil by then. And yes, the Bank of Canada does want a recession. They call it a soft landing, but they do want a recession. This is the whole point of that. Some people think that I'm praying for a recession, but it's not me. This is the cycle, right? This is all part of the cycle. We have good times and you have bad times. I just told my cousin today in Ireland, she was messaging about the Irish housing market. People who are saying, well, prices won't go down. I say, well, just as the tide goes in, it goes out, right? Prices go up, they come down. And lastly, the home buying recipe. This is updated, not a big change, but I did add battery indicators to make it more visually appealing for those people who like that kind of thing. And of course, we have the falling prices. The falling rates we don't have yet. The high unemployment we don't have, but it has ticked up. So we have 1 bar of battery there. And the mortgage arrears and delinquencies are still ultra low. Nothing happening there. Of course, in my previous predictions last year, I'm predicting 2024 to 2025 for buying opportunities. So we are kind of on track, but don't expect it in the next month or two. So that's it for this week. Any comments, replies, questions down below as always, and I'll see you next time.